chapter clicked in to College Volleyball Weekly on Viral Volley Media. Now here's your host, Rob on mic.
Hey, good day, everyone. Welcome to College Volleyball Weekly Men's Top 20, episode 264, week 12 recap, week 13 preview. And I'm going to warn all our listeners right now. There are a bunch of salty guys on the screen or online right now, except for Brad. He's had the week off, I believe, so he's okay. But for the most part, guys have come in hot. And we haven't even started that segment yet. So with me, Brad Rothstetter, UC San Diego, since he's the calm, loving peace guy right now on the screen. Jay Hosick of George Mason, Theo Edwards of CSUN, and we got Dan Friend, who was the last one to be salty in our off-screen recording.
I just want to let everybody know, Rob sent in a text this morning complaining about, I've been in the sun all day and I'm tired and I'm exhausted. And I'm like, oh, really? Really tough life for you, Rob. I hate for you to be out in the sun when it's snowing here when Theo comes, just so you know.
Well, I need to be clear. And then, it's Collegiate Beach, so is a lot of people in the sun.
And you know why Brad's happy? He had the week off, and he's going to Hawaii next week. And wah, I gotta go to Hawaii. Wah. Peace and love, everybody. Peace and love today.
Well, let's get started here. Our favorite segment to start us off, the elephant in the room. We'll talk about the guys' results on the screen. We already know Brad's. He's all prepped for Hawaii, but guys, base tan, not the other way. Base tan, ready for the sun in Hawaii because he's off this week. But let's start with who was the saltiest. I think Dan was the saltiest coming on. So let's start with him this week.
Well, I'm not talking first. Theo won. Let him talk first.
Sure, I'll kick it off. Why not? We the guys and I made our way over to Chicago and had a couple of matches against Lewis and Loyola. Always a good time. I feel like everything was awesome aside from the food. The food in Chicago is incredibly overrated. Portillo's, Illuminati's, just putting it out there. Not as good as everybody says.
Whoa!
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Blasphemy.
That's right. Not
Hate
as good
mail,
as everybody
Edwards
says.
@gmail.com.
Also, the down refs might be questionable as well, but we won't go there.
Oh, I thought we were going to go there. Oh, we'll go there later.
We'll eventually go there. We won't go there now. But two really, really hard-fought matches. If you guys remember from the podcast battles of last year, Dan and the Lewis Flyers came to Northridge, beat us in 5, and we were able to go back there and essentially even the score. But it was an awesome battle. I think both us and Lewis had been a little bit, you hit that mid-season lull a little bit and you're trying to find some things and work through some stuff. And I think both us and Lewis were kind of in that space when we faced each other. And you saw Max Rocky really start to put things back together. And, he had a couple of matches that weren't that great. And he played really well against us and as well as OG. And I thought they did a really great job putting some pressure on us and getting us in really tough positions. And early in the match, they did a great job against Jalen and kind of slowed him down. And luckily for us, he awakened kind of late in the third and the fourth and helped us pull it out with a deuce 1 in the 5th. And it was an awesome match, a really back and forth. If you watched Matt Houlihan's video of the float serve Jesus, but essentially both of our teams had some great flow servers that went on some runs late in the 5th set. And it's always fun playing Dan, and I think that our schools are very similar in terms of the edge, and the guys like to compete a lot, and there was a lot of back and forth, but nothing but love. Lewis does a fantastic job. Obviously, I got a ton of respect for Dan, and just always fun to compete against him. So then we made our way to Loyola after that, and Dan, I'll let you touch up on some more of our match when you get your chance. But we made our way to Loyola and played Shane Davis and the Ramblers and had a great match there as well. And there were some interesting things that went down. I think that one of the things that I have not seen in my career to date yet was in set 2. We had set point. I think we were up 24-22 or 24-21, something like that. And Shane made, I think what a lot of people thought online was they were out of rotation, but actually what had happened was it was a second serving sub entered in for their middle blocker. Late, the ref didn't catch it. We didn't catch it when it initially happened. So he goes in to serve and essentially serves twice, evens the score to 24 all. We called a timeout. And now obviously it's at break. And we ended up catching it. The refs ended up catching it. I think the computer ends up also catching it. And with no further ado, they end the set right then and there. Like the fans were on the edge of their seat. It's now 24 all. Loyola has the ability to go up 2-0. And all of a sudden, the ref blows his whistle and goes, end of set, switch sides. And I think a lot of people inside the gym, they didn't give a lot of clarification. I know the people watching at home, everyone was like, what happened? But essentially, they ended it there. It ended up going back and forth from there. We had a pretty nice lead in set 3. We were up like 7 points, I think, late, and ended up making a couple of mistakes and allowed that one to get away from us. We won set 4, and then a deuce in set 5, and another really, really interesting situation that I have not seen in my career yet. And we're going to go over some of the challenge stuff, so I don't want to get too far into it. But essentially, the call on the floor, their setter took a swing at a ball. The call on the floor was it was out because it was out. No touch, ball's out of bounds. They end up awarding us the point. Score should now be 12-12 in set 5. Shane Davis challenges, great challenge, good smart play. The down ref goes to the screen, takes a look at it, and then changes the call. At the time, it was like really crazy. It was way crazier once we actually got to look at the footage ourselves. And see that the ball was out. Essentially, it ended up being Loyola up 13-11, which still ended up being an 18-16 finish in a deuce game. But a really hard-fought battle. I thought Parker Van Buren was fantastic. Tough guy to battle against for sure. And 2 really, really hard-fought lessons for our team. And it was awesome to go to Chicago and eat some bad food and play some good volleyball.
Well, with that, we almost have to go directly to Dan.
Wow. Well, I'd be curious, and this would go for all the coaches. Like, I think you can request, like, to the challenge plays that are basically saved and usually supposed to be sent to the official. So I think Theo, you should follow up on that one for sure.
Well, that's what I was actually going to talk to you about after we logged off.
Yeah, I think there's at least reaching out to the assigner in that region or that area, because he should have that in terms of that. Yeah, I think our match was great. It was a little ugly at times. It was back and forth. You saw us go on a run, then you saw them go on a run, and I do think you get in this kind of mid-season, where I don't know, we're 25 matches in for us, and guys are just get a little tired. And so, but then I think the adrenaline pumps in. You started seeing some pretty high level volleyball as you got later in the match. Our crowd was packed. We had high school night. And so I think Theo paid some high school to cheer for them the entire night. I can't remember, but they were just saying Northridge all night long. Those guys are never allowed back in our gym ever. We'll make sure of that. But it was great. And you saw 2 opposites really go after it towards the end, between OG and Jalen, and those guys were just taking big swings after big swings. And but yeah, I mean, you get down to those types of matches, a point here and a point there, and basically Theo's guys kind of finished it. So kudos to his group, and great match for them, and probably a tough rebound to go 5 again 2 days later. But certainly I think when you do that, because we've liked to go 5 every single match we play lately, so maybe it makes you better in the end. So, but our match again, then we played Ohio State, big conference game for us on Saturday, and again down to the wire, and we ended up winning 15-13, and the match was back and forth. And we had some guys, offensively we weren't real good, but defensively we did a pretty nice job. We were somewhere around 15 or 16 blocks, and scored some points when we needed to. And so much needed. We're taking a couple days of rest. Sunday, no practice today, and get ourselves geared back up for the remaining 5 or 6 conference games that we've got in front of us. But yeah, And
Hey.
I don't know what's up with Theo and his food choices. Maybe he just needs to pick better places. So,
Well, he needs a organic, free range, antibiotic free, all that stuff, that California stuff. He wants kale and like almonds.
You just
That's
got
what he's
all these
looking for.
people that claim that this Portillo's place is like good food. That's fast food at best. Like great atmosphere. Great atmosphere.
wait, I just want to know what you got.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to what you got.
So
Yeah.
we go, I went to the front and I asked them, what do you order when you come here?
Yeah.
I asked the employees, what do you order? They said, okay, you get yourself a Chicago dog, which no ketchup. That's like illegal in Chicago, which that is the craziest thing I've ever heard.
You're above 12 years of age. You should never put ketchup on a hot dog after 12 years of age. You know that, Theo. And
Is that for
Portillo's-
real? Is that a
That's
real
a real
thing?
thing. That's
a
half the
real
problem. Yeah.
It's a real thing.
Okay. Well, that hot dog was terrible, and that giant pickle that makes 0 sense. Like we're putting a pickle bigger than the hot dog itself.
Oh my gosh.
One of
Like,
the best hot dogs in the world. What are you talking about?
wow,
Okay,
you're gonna get
listen,
crushed.
Listen, none of you have been to Dodger Stadium. Okay.
Oh, hey, whoa, whoa.
You want a
I
great
grew up
hot
in
dog?
LA.
Take yourself to Dodger Stadium.
The show just left the screen.
And you know what, Jay, you are one of the greatest food assessment analyst dudes I've ever been around. Portillo's is terrible, and you know it.
So you just got a Chicago dog?
It's called a Chicago dog for a reason there. Just
Yeah.
so you know.
And second of all, you didn't order the Italian beef. That's the order.
It was so bad, he froze. That's why he's freezing everybody. Your whole
That's
screen
right.
froze, Theo. That's why.
They're
I don't
hacking
know
into
what
my
you're talking
system.
about.
Somebody heard about what I was saying.
Well, I'm
Yeah,
clipping
you
it
don't-
for social.
Did you have the chocolate cake?
The chocolate
Cake
shake.
Oh, well, that's a problem there. That they have the best chocolate cake ever. So
Okay, so you
maybe
go to a
ask
hot dog
what to
place
order.
and
And
you
here's
know
what I
to
would have
get
told
chocolate
you.
cake. Got it.
Their
Let me write
chops-
that down in my notes.
Their chopped salad is phenomenal. I would have told you what to order if you had just
Salads and
texted
cake
somebody that
from a
lives here versus asking the 16-year-old employee that probably told you to put ketchup on your hot dog because they're just not very smart.
All right, fans. This is
No, they were upset. They said, don't put ketchup on the hot dog. They
No
agree with
ketchup.
you
Theo,
guys.
I would like to challenge your Portillo's order and help you out next time.
It's right.
Wow. Unbelievable. So you guys
Italian?
all like Portillo's.
No, you get the Italian, you get extra hot peppers, you get it dipped, and that is the order you get at Portillo's. You don't get a hot dog at Portillo's. There's so many other great hot dog places in Chicago. And second of all, I grew up in LA. I've had the Dodger dog. It's nothing more than a boiled foot-long hot dog. It's not that good.
Jimmy Dean.
Hey,
Not that
Rob, we got to move this thing along because
I know. I'm like, it's
day.
turned into College
Disappointment
Volleyball
is
Weekly
absolutely
men's
real.
top food picks.
And
So
Lou Malnati's is not the best deep dish pizza.
Oh,
in Chicago.
Giordano's is where
Thank
you
God.
should have been.
oh my God.
If
Thank
they're
Thank
not-
God we agree
Equals.
on something.
All right. We're still the elephant in the room, but we're going to go to
You
jail
don't,
this
you don't listen, Theo. You don't get this body by Adonis by eating salads all day. I could have pointed you in a direction that would have been a completely different gastronomic choice for you.
Now listen, we had some great pizza. It just was not Illuminati's. It was Bob's Pizza, downtown Evanston. Fantastic. There you go. They're sponsoring my players of the week.
All right, Jay. Elephant in the room. Two
Wow,
matches for you.
How do I follow that melee right there?
That's called a tangent.
That's right. That's right. Let's bring this back in, if you will. Yeah, our guys had a big weekend. We had Damon come in, and Damon, you know, if you're paying attention to them over the last couple of years, they won the NEC last year. They're poised to win it again this year. They're a good team. They're scrappy. They got a new head coach named Derek, who was I believe the assistant for Don, who left to go to Purdue Fort Wayne. Derek is trying to put together another great run, and so they came in and they pushed us. They're really, really solid. They got a few outside hitters, or a couple outside hitters, and an opposite that do some nice things. They got a couple good middles, and their setter ran a really nice offense, and so we ended up winning in 4, which is good. You know, we weren't exactly crisp and clean, and they had a few more missed serves than we did, but we found a way to win. And against a good team like that, we were happy with that performance. And then obviously the next day or 2 days later, we played UC Irvine, who obviously somebody on this podcast might have an association with. I don't know who that would be, but one of you guys has an association with them. But, you know, obviously UC Irvine's in the top 5 for the reasons that everybody talks about. They are super solid, and they're trying to make another run this year. I thought we played well for about 3/4 of the match. And unfortunately, when you play against a team that plays well for a full match, that usually doesn't work well in your favor. But we competed hard. We learned a few things about ourselves. We learned about some things we got to get better at. And UC Irvine, I think for me, what really rings true for any top team, you've obviously got the one guy that can get you out of trouble. And everybody here knows about Hannah. That's not, that's not a secret anywhere. But they've got a couple other guys that I think are a little unsung at the moment. One of them obviously is Nolan Flexen, who's moved over to the left. He's not known, but he hasn't been the guy that everybody talks about on that team, and they should be. Flexen is hitting the ball, I think last time I checked, at 14 feet. It's a pretty tough ball to block if you're not in his airspace. And he's doing a nice job. He's getting better at passing. And I think that was the big knock on him in the first part of the year, moving him over to the left side, was how is he going to handle the serving? Now, granted, we might not be as prolific as maybe some of the other teams they're going to face this year in terms of serving. We're not bad at it, but there's some other guys they're going to face mainly this upcoming weekend. They might hit it a little bit harder, a little bit faster, a little more consistent. We'll see how that holds up. But here's the other unsung hero for UC Irvine, Joe Carlos. He does a really nice job distributing the rock, and he's super even keeled. He's really scrappy. He's crafty. He plays great defense. He's a good leader on the court. Joe Carlos is one of the unsung heroes in that team, and I think underrated in terms of quality setters in the country this year. There's a number that everybody obviously knows about already. We talk about him all the time, but I think Joe Carlos needs to be put in that conversation. He was a Pepperdine kid and then transferred down to go to UC Irvine, sat last year behind Shuey, and now in his last go-around is getting a chance to run the offense, and he's doing a really, really nice job. So we lost in 3 to UC Irvine, but I like the performance of our guys for 3/4 of that match, and so that's good for us to build on. We got a big couple of weeks or a few weeks coming up. We got 8 matches in the IBA that all matter. And right now we're sitting in first place, but you got a lot of teams that are battling and are real close to each other. So that's the elephant in the room for me.
Well, the only thing I'll add is in regards to Hanno, and I say this with only the highest respect, appreciation of the effort and the skill and the play that he puts out on the court, but he wasn't himself the early part of the season. You looked at Flexen getting all those numbers, leading in points and everything. And even from the service line, Hanno finished the year last year averaging an ace per set. That is amazing.
Who is this you're talking about?
Hanno?
Who's Hanno? Who's Hanno? I don't know who you're talking about. There was a guy named Hanno on your team. I can't remember who that is.
So, but he ends up, I really think, since these 4 losses, the 4 to Long Beach State and Hawaii and UCLA, he's really picked it up. You see him leading in points. His hitting percentage is up, and he's getting more aces now. So,
and here's the part that I think when you watch some of the best servers in the country, some of them are just bombing the crap out of serves, right? But the really good ones have a variety of serves to pull at will at any given moment. You have guys like Mooney, you have guys like Keone Tham, you have guys like Hanno. They can serve hard. They can find direction and spots on the court at will. They can throw chop serves in. They can do a whole wide variety of things, and it puts passers on their heels. They're not sure what to expect. And, unfortunately, he had a nice little run in set 3 against us and made us look a little bit silly at times, but he's a prolific server. He's unbelievable.
Yep. Well, I haven't heard from Brad, and although he doesn't really have an elephant, so to speak, this week, did you unplug from volleyball, or were you? Can you give an outside take on what you've heard so far?
Yeah, I mean, I was relatively unplugged. We had some Saturday morning practice, and then I was getting ready for the baby's room, since the next 8 weeks are going to be a bit of a grind here in the volleyball world. So we were relatively unplugged. But I think if getting to check in and watch, Theo out in Chicago was fun. And really,
Dan, you didn't want to see Dan. You just wanted to see Theo. I just want to be clear there.
I mean,
Rob,
we
he
gotta
doesn't
pull
have
for the
to
Big
play
West
Dan
people.
later in the
Dan, I
year.
already complimented your beard earlier, so I think we're good on that front.
All right.
Uh,
Rob's just stirring the pot because he's sunburn or something. I don't know what's wrong with him. So.
But no, I think, ultimately that Midwest trip for Northridge with Lewis Loyola, I think it really showed off three awesome opposites. With Jalen Phillips, OG, and then Parker Van Buren. I thought really late in all those matches, when I pull it up or I was watching it live and it was like, all right, this ball's probably going back. All right, this ball's probably going back. And then a few of them, they didn't go back. I was like, oh, I probably would have gone back there in a lot of those situations. But I thought overall, from the bits and pieces I saw, was some pretty good volleyball. And then kind of talking about Irvine and George Mason, didn't watch that, but just looking at the numbers and knowing that Irvine team and seeing them play, and like that's just a tough team for anyone to beat. Like you have to physically beat them. They are not going to beat themselves. They're going to play really consistent, steady volleyball. And even on Rob's point about Heno, like that's a totally new team. And I think something that people need to be aware of is last year Heno was passing alongside Cole Power and Akil Tengatar, who were maybe two of the best passers in all of college volleyball last year. And now his role is he's taken on a lot more of that passing component with a young libero and Aitken, and then whether it be Flexen or some of the other outside hitters we saw earlier on in the year, to where that takes a toll on your attacking, that takes a toll on your serving. And that's part of why we have the preseason and part of why the ramp up of season is so important, is because you learn how those new team dynamics work together and figuring out how to wear that burden as a returning player of the year and still being able to perform and play at a high level. So I have no doubt this weekend he'll continue where he's been, and I think even his struggles have been struggles that all of us as coaches would love to have within our teams and within our players.
Good point, Brad.
Yeah, he still is the number 2 ace leader in the country, in case anyone was wondering. Rob's like, oh, he was 1 ace per set last year. He's still pretty darn close, Rob. Not that bad.
Who are we talking about? Who are we talking about?
The player of the year last year. Oh, that guy?
I forgot his name. I don't know who you're talking about.
Well, I said jump on some news, but we could easily call this sorry, Dan, the Nikki Sandlin or McKendry section of the podcast, because McKendry did a lot of great things last week. They won in 5, and on that night, on March 19th, Kevin Shuley breaks the McKendry career ace record, topping Patrick Ross's record of 79. So that made the news, but also on the 22nd, the Bearcats, or what Matt Houlihan refers to as the Honey Badgers. You got to watch documentaries on the Honey Badgers. Hilarious. But they're apparently one of the most ferocious animals. I did not know that. But they broke a program record wins, taking down Quincy Hawks. So, but they also sit atop of the MEVA, sorry, Dan, at 10-1. So some good stuff. But that was part of the segment. Let's talk about 5 setters in the MEVA just this last week between Theo's 2 play at Lewis and Loyola, and then you add in McKendry and Lindenwood, who's putting up a battle now. And you look at the standings of the MEVA, it's still a mess. So, any thoughts on what's happening in the MEVA? We'll talk about more.
First of all, Rob, I consider you a social media kind of guru of sorts. You've never seen the meme video, Honey Badgers don't give a what? You haven't seen that video? Honey Badgers.
Well, one of the beach volleyball players' dad sent that to me and never laughed harder in my life.
Yeah, they're tough mother effers, man. Those little things they don't care.
Thanks, Louis Chacon. Appreciate it. He's opened my eyes to some new info.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dan, I mean, watching Ohio State matches against you guys and Loyola, I mean, there's some serious battling going on in that conference.
Yeah, I think we've talked about it before. I do think McKendry and Loyola have separated themselves a little bit. This is a big weekend coming up for McKendry because they travel on the road to Ohio State and Ball State. And, I think don't fall asleep on Ball State. They've got the pieces and they're super physical. And so I think that's certainly a dynamic trip with those two matches, and ultimately McHenry goes in, but and like you said, Ohio State has the capability to play some high-level volleyball. So yeah, but I think Loyola and McHenry are kind of there, and then you got Ball State, us, Ohio State, but Lindenwood's had a couple nice wins. They were right there, ready to take down McHenry. But again, McHenry's just clean, especially at the end of matches, and you've seen that repeatedly by them. So I don't think that's going to go away. It's kind of just their style and how Nikki trains her group, and I think they're having a great year. So lots of compliments to that program, and those people who haven't been paying attention, they've been good for a while. It's not a shock. They've had upsets, they've been ranked, and I think that they had a special group to hopefully put themselves in a position to win the regular season, and then conference tournament becomes a whole different ball. A conference tournament, anybody can take it at any given time, and so you want to get into a good groove, and all the coaches on the screen know that. And but if you're just talking about regular season, I like McHenry's chances, but Loyola is right there too. Loyola's got to come back to our house too, which I'm sure they'll want a little revenge. From that standpoint, we still got to go on the road to Ohio State and Purdue, Fort Wayne, but lots of great matches. And yeah, you talk about 5-set matches. I don't know the league count so far. I'd be curious to go look at it, but I know we're somewhere around 9 or 10 this year in terms of 5-set matches. That's a lot of games and a lot of wear and tear on your guys. And we talk about that when you have opportunities to win matches in 3, but you don't quite put it away. It can sneak up on you later in the year for some of your guys in terms of wear and tear and reps.
One of the teams that we haven't really spoken about, but we know they're good, is Ball State. They were without Tanashi and Davizacheva for, a good handful of matches due to an injury, but they're right there hanging at 8-3 in the MEVA, but they're going to be in the battle, and they got him back, and I'm going to guess he's still not 100%, but he's still putting up really good numbers. So want to get all your guys' thoughts on what Donan's doing with his guys, because it looks like he's got some good reserves in there to step in if needed.
Well, when T was out, you had Patrick Rogers in there kind of carrying the load, and his numbers were good at times, but they weren't great at all times. And, people started going, oh, Ball State's not that good. Well, yeah, but you had one guy. Then when you have another couple of guys that can come in and take some of the load off, it spread the ball around a little bit. All of a sudden, their offense starts humming again. So you're absolutely right. Ball State going down the line, they're not a team I'd want to face. They're going to be pretty good.
Yep. And what else?
Especially like with the McHenry going out to Ball State and Ohio State, really they have to win one of those two, and then take care of business the rest of the regular season, and they got a share of first place clinched, which is an impressive performance, and they would technically be in first place with the tiebreaker over Loyola since they only played them once this year.
No, Loyola's got the tiebreaker. Loyola won in 3, I think.
I thought McHenry beat them now.
McHenry did, but they won in 5, and Loyola won in 3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I thought they only played once for some reason.
Twice. Yeah.
Got it. But yeah, so McHenry's still in a great spot where they can be taking care of business and having to keep everything going, and then Dan can play spoiler as well.
Yeah, Ball State was favored, if you guys remember, in the beginning. So I think quietly 8-3 right now. They're not in a bad spot as they go into the stretch if everybody's healthy.
And it's good to have some depth and have some different guys play in different spots and fill in while other guys are injured or coming back from injury. So it only makes the team better.
Yeah.
You can make an argument for almost any one of these MEVA teams in terms of what they're capable of doing. And you look at Ball State, and when Ball State manages the ball control, and they have obviously some of the best offensive weapons and a ton of experience in that group, right? Like, you got a group that really has seen a lot of volleyball and a lot of high level volleyball. And so what I think is going to be interesting, and this is how it always works, is who can step up when you have to win. It's been one thing, you get through that middle of the season stretch, and I don't want to say guys get a little bit less enthused, but they're tired, man. They're going through the grind. It's 6 to 7 days a week for most of these guys, at least from a mental perspective, and it gets hard. You get down the stretch, and that experience really tends to pay off for the teams that have seen it and have done it. And it'll be interesting to see how teams like McHenry continue on the path that they've been on. And you know, I have no doubt in Nikki and what she's capable of doing. But yeah, Loyola's deadly. Lewis is deadly. Ball State is deadly. You don't want to see any of them, to be honest. So it's really going to be who can kind of perform at the end, because not one of those teams would surprise me in their ability to go ahead and go out and win the MEVA.
Yep. All right, good stuff there. Yeah, with conferences, some conferences are at their midway point. Others are 4 matches in, and there's a lot of 4-0 and 2-2s going on as far as standings. But a lot's going to be shaping up here these next few weeks, and we're going to see. We've seen some changes, and one of the teams that we haven't really spoken of a lot because it's been more Mooney Nikolov, but Long Beach State has been changing up their lineup as well. We've seen Sebastiano Sani, or Seba Sani, play that OH2 position. We've seen Ben Braun come in this week against NJIT, but it looks like Al's got a deep bench as we start up conference play. And this week, and unfortunately, Irvine, or fortunately, excuse me, it's going to be a barn burner week. I'm going to guarantee it this week, Friday and Saturday, it's going to be nuts.
Well, I think it's important to note, though, Siapanis is dealing with a back injury and is not, I don't know if he definitely can still play, but he's not 100%. And I don't know if they're trying to get him to be 100% by the time that Big West tournament comes around. But they have him doing a ton of passing work. But offensively, I mean, you can notice it if you watch warm-ups and stuff. He's reaching on his back quite a bit, and he's dealing with some health stuff. So I think that's a big part of the lineup stuff. And Sonny, as talented as a player as he is, there's some inconsistencies that I think that they are trying to deal with and trying to continue to find options to fill Siapanis' role.
Well, and so far it hasn't been a factor. So, you know, Soto gets a chance to kind of take a little time here and get ready to go, because it won't matter really until the Big West tournament. That's what's going to matter the most. And, you know, I think a few extra weeks of rest and rehab and all those things, I think he'll be right back in the mix, and I don't think it'll be an issue or anything.
Yeah.
He had back stuff back in the early part of his career too. So, yeah.
Right.
Buyer beware. Why would Allen recruit an injured guy? That's so strange to me.
He's the best passer on their roster. Most people like him for other reasons, but that passing is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's solid for sure.
And he has a little flair and swagger to the lineup as well. Gets him fired up, and he's a crowd favorite.
Yeah, especially at Santa Barbara. I remember that.
Oh boy. Well, let's one of the matches that caught, or the series that caught me this week, BYU Grand Canyon. Wanted to get your guys' thought. BYU takes night number 1, 3-1, but Grand Canyon fires back on night 2. Wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that matchup in the MPSF. Who wants to jump in?
I think you saw the setter switch for Grand Canyon, and I think that made a little bit of an impact. You know, their starting setter all year has been a guy who's been a little fiery competitor, and I think arguably they're running a little bit of a slower offense. Both those teams, for that matter, run a little bit of a slower offense, which, I mean, I'm looking at BYU, and it looks like they're just chucking high balls up even when they're in system. So I'm not so sure that was the direction they wanted to go later on in the year, but they gave another guy a chance, and he seems to run a nice offense, and obviously Grand Canyon responded pretty well. So I think those are two teams that obviously can have hot nights and they can do some nice things. I don't know that they have the consistency across the board to be able to win their conference tournaments, but they could play spoiler at a couple places. You never know.
Yeah, I think Kyle Zedeker came in night 2 for Grand Canyon, was the setter from, I think he's from Illinois. Came in. He probably likes Portillo's more than you, Theo.
He definitely does, because I don't like it.
But he came in, he did a good job setting, but really did a great job blocking wise, especially BYU has a lot of pin hitters as they've been cycling through them, and did a great job blocking on all types of different guys, whether it be Meeks or Keone or Luke Benson and even Talon. So his blocking did a great job. And then I think really it came down to, right, when BYU started getting some momentum, you had, Rob, you had alluded to it earlier, the Jared Anderson 4 aces in a row, one down the line, one cross court, one down the line, another one cross court. And then right after that, Cole Ottmer goes on another serving run. And I think he had 2 aces of his own in a run of 5 or 6 points. So it was a really impressive showing right when BYU got some momentum to see Grand Canyon step up and serve some lasers and get them back into it and help them win in 3 and get a sweep. Yeah, I was really impressed with Grand Canyon's response after night 1.
Well, I happened to be watching that match and I couldn't believe my eyes. Grand Canyon down 7-15 to finish a third, 18-4 scoring run to win the match. I was like, did that just
that
happen?
was the piece that I was going to comment on, Rob.
Oh, go ahead, Theo. Go for it.
I thought that from a, there's such a mentality to this game and this in college sports in general, but that type of play, not only from Grand Canyon and their ability to put together that string of events, but seemed to me like it took the air out of BYU's sails. And it seemed like they started to question whether they could beat that team. But yeah, to go back to the setting point, I mean, the setting change was huge. And offensively, I mean, Grand Canyon hit almost 400 for that match, the night 2 match. And, for them to be obviously at home gives them some comfort, some ability to kind of run their systems and do what they do. But I think Grand Canyon's been chomping at the bit. They've gone through some struggle matches and have had their challenges. And obviously they're working really hard. They're working hard. They had obviously a coach change earlier in the year and working through some things and trying to figure out how to put it together. And this was a pretty impressive showing.
Yep.
A pretty wild stat line for Jared Anderson: 6 kills, 6 aces.
Good point scoring. Dan, got something?
Yeah, I think speaks to the parity of men's volleyball. We talk about there's some talented players on a lot of these benches for a lot of these teams. And kudos to the GCU staff. Sometimes coaches could be hesitant on putting guys in and giving them shots, and they saw that pay off. And we've done it with our setting a couple times where we have one setter that just is a totally different rhythm than the other setter, and it's really helped some things. So when you have lucky enough to have a second setter that can come in and do something like that, you kind of saw that. You saw them, change the flow of the game, and it took BYU a little bit of time to figure it out. It's just a different momentum and how you read it, and then you saw GCU build some momentum. So a good win for that group. And ultimately, that group is working with, coaches that have been there, but the staff changes things. So I think they're grinding away and trying to figure out what works best for this coaching unit with them. Not that it's totally different, but it's still different a little bit on who's being the head. And it's a great win against a good program. And it'll be interesting to see what changes as they move forward in the rest of league play that both these programs do to put themselves in good positions.
Yep. Well, I also wanted to add one other thing. I know we already covered Long Beach State, but again, I just I'm mind blown by Mooney Nikolov's point scoring. He scored 15.5 points on night 1 versus NJIT, and then 15. And in fact, one of the nights he was the leading scorer and kill leader for Long Beach State. He's a setter, for goodness sakes. So, yeah, we're seeing something that, have you guys seen it in your entire careers in volleyball? A player like this, a setter who's doing contributing point scoring wise like he is.
No, nobody has.
I'm I had to set a check. In the time I've been following the game, nothing like that.
The closest thing would probably be Micah Hancock at Penn State, and that was mostly just serving. That no one had seen a lefty topspin serve like that.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, Rob. It's ridiculous. And if you watch some of his offensive plays at the net, he can attack a ball without jumping. And that helps him a lot in this process. I mean, I don't know what his standing reach is measurably, but he is well above the net just standing on the ground. But I think what's more surprising and impressive is we've seen setters of that size, but we've never seen them move and handle the ball the way that he does. And that's the piece that's just so incredible, right? All the facets of the game that you look for in a setter, he has the ability to do all of them, and he's not limited by his size, his athleticism. He has the tools to do all of it.
But according to Rock at Penn State, he's not that good of a setter. He's just average.
No, his exact words is, I can name 15 setters better than him.
15.
He will be player of the year. He will be freshman of the year.
Just like brother in 2022.
Like brother.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope there's not a whole lot more of those guys coming through that Allen's going to just grab onto. I don't know how many kids are left.
He's going to be player of the year for the Big West. He'll be freshman of the year for the Big West. He'll be player of the year for the national. He'll be freshman of the year national.
We got setter of the year.
Yeah, and setter of the year. I mean, yeah. And he'll be making more money next year playing than all four of us combined.
Yeah.
Well, and thank God that the national team setter from Bulgaria left, because the pressure on him to go back home is huge. And specifically, he just needs to play against pros. Like, they need to prepare because they're trying to make a run in 28. And so I think he should leave now before the Big West tournament starts. But that's just me.
I bet he doesn't eat ketchup on his hot dogs.
Well, I'll tell you, he did an interview. I forgot, and forgive me for not remembering the name of the podcast, but he did an interview, and he does feel that pressure. He needs to go back to the Bulgarian national team, which, I mean, it's great for Bulgaria, but States collegiate volleyball, I mean, he's drawn a lot of attention to the game because he's doing such unique things. And, like his brother, he was doing things that we hadn't seen before, but his brother was an outside hitter. So, two different kinds of game from the same family. So,
yeah. No, I think you're spot on with that, Rob, because I think the attention, his social media presence, what he's doing for the game right now is just fantastic. And seeing the young kids and the way that they watch him and look up to him has been a pretty cool thing to see for our game in general.
And it just keeps raising the bar, which is what we always want.
Yep. Well, I hope that a lot of the international guys really start to take a page out of his book, in the sense that his ability to garner a social media foundation. And we were talking about this quite a bit, but using the tools, a lot of our universities essentially provide for our student athletes this free ability for you to get a ton of video footage from different angles and using music and editing and design to market yourself as a player. Right. And you get that essentially for free, right? It's built into what the universities are attempting to do for themselves. And so Mooney comes over here and he gets to capitalize on all of the views, right? Just the social media presence itself. And now it takes his social media accounts through the roof. And now he gets to take that home with him. And so for a lot of these international guys, it's a great step in their professional career to come here. I think you should stay and get a degree, but I think that process is really, really cool. I do.
But you just want Mooney to take off before the Big West tournament.
No, I mean,
gotcha.
I was joking in that sense. But I honestly, I'm grateful, even though he's not on our team, I'm grateful that he's here. And I think he brings an aspect to our game that, like Brad said, it raises the bar. It has every tall setter in the game, including Tread Rosenthal, I guarantee, is watching him and trying to understand the way he plays and trying to replicate it.
Yeah. Well, I know we're going long in this segment, but are there any other week 13 or week 12 matches we want to touch on here, guys? Okay. Well, I have to mention Mount Olive then, because they're on a 14-match winning streak. They're 11-0 in the Conference Carolinas. And a couple names that were dropped last week are huge contributors. Corey Grant leads the team 238 points, averaging 4.33 points percent, 3.78 kills percent. But it's Tate Sandvig that Dan brought to my attention. He's currently battling cancers, I believe.
Yep.
He is second leading scorer on the team. So, I mean, that is definitely quite the story. I'm going to follow up on that for sure. And
their setter's legit. I don't have his name off the top of my head. But
Corey Grant. Is that right? No, that was Leahy. Sorry, Jackson Leahy. 10.93 assists percent. So,
but their libero's legit too.
Oh, I didn't get his numbers on that one, but Yeah, definitely as we get closer to the end of the season, crazy. We're already talking about the end of the season with conference play wrapping up here because we're in April soon next week, and we're in a couple weeks. It's going to be crunch time. So it'll be fun to watch what transpires in each of these conferences. With that, our favorite segment that no one really dropped any names early today. So, since Brad has been quiet, he's been patient, but I think it's because he's just been off. Why don't you pick your players of the week?
I actually think he might have gotten it last week as well, but we didn't talk about the match, but Pepperdine beat Menlo twice. Some close sets, but pretty controlled. But Ryan Barnett, 15 plus kills in both matches, just keeps playing at a really high level and attacking air free and very, very terminal. So my player of the week is Ryan Barnett from Pepperdine.
Just one. Wow. Okay. Let's go over to Jay since he had the classic what going on there.
I've got two, and one of them is someone that I think I don't know if anybody else on here is going to give the love to, so I want to make sure I do. OG at Lewis, 24 kills on versus Ohio State, 25 kills versus CSUN. Kid's having a year, and that's awesome to see. But I'm going to give a little love to somebody who might not get enough love throughout the course of the year, and that is Zach Schneider, outside hitter for Damon. Against us, he had 22 kills at 366. Even though they lost in 4, still a great performance. Against UC Irvine, he had 9 kills, hit 316. Against Princeton, he had 19 kills and hit 406. Kid hit 370 plus for the weekend, and they lost all 3 matches, but that kid's really shining. So kudos to him, giving a little love to maybe a team and a guy that might not get any from anybody else around here. So I'm giving you a little love there, Zach Schneider.
All right, let's jump over to Dan.
I'm going to stay on the opposite in Jalen Phillips and Parker Van Buren. So I think we were talking about 3 opposites, and Jay gave some love to OG, but I think I want to stay with those 2, both key components in their teams in terms of victories and what they're doing for their teams.
All right, and then the hate mail receiver winner of the episode, Theo Edwards.
Yeah, Jay, just so you know, I was going to pick OG too. So 100%. I mean, he's playing some really, really great ball, and he hits the ball really hard. In case anybody doesn't know, he hits the ball real hard. But I'm going to go ahead and give it to Hilaire Heno is going to be one of them. 12 kills, hit 733 against Damon, and that was one heck of a match. And I think the other one for me is probably going to be Patrick Rogers. Who has had a little bit of a quiet year. I don't know that we've mentioned his name quite a bit this year, but he hit 22 kills in their match against Queens, and I think Ball State's obviously coming into a pretty important part of their season. And if they're going to be good, I think they need Patrick Rogers to be really good too.
Yep, good calls. I'm going to drop a couple myself. I'm doing Tanashi and Davos Acheva because he's back, and Ball State will be a factor in the MEVA without a doubt towards the end here. And then Mooney Nikolov, just scoring, a point scoring setter like that. It's amazing. And Jay's yawning because apparently it's, since Theo took Hilaire, I was going to actually tout my own guy, but you got it. So you're good. Let's pick, I know that at conference, a lot of the conferences are back in action this week, but pick one match in your maybe 1 or 2 matches that you'll be watching for in week 13. We'll go back to Theo, Dan, Brad, then Jake.
Oh, great. I'll pick one. And this is brought to you by Bob's Pizza, better than Luminati's. How about that? This will be the match that I think is going to be really, really exciting, actually, is, can I pick 2? Or you got,
sure.
You going to hold me to 1? Can I pick 2?
There is a ton of matches.
There's so many good matches coming up. UC San Diego, Hawaii. UC San Diego, Hawaii. That is going to be one hell of a matchup. You want to talk about some opposites that are going to battle. You're going to have 2 great opposites in that one. So that'll be a fun one. The other one that I think is really interesting, and obviously everyone would mention this if it wasn't mentioned, but it's UCI and Long Beach State. And so I'm picking 2 Big West ones because we're in the full fledged of our conference right now. We got 4 weeks of it essentially. And those 2 matchups are going to be absolutely epic volleyball and some good level to watch. So tune in. Bob's Pizza.
All right. Dan.
Yeah, I've got McKendree going on the road, Ball State and Ohio State. Those are my two. So I think certainly impactful conference matches for all three of those programs.
All right. Brett.
I got a couple. We'll stick with two, but I think one that's really intriguing. I think Charleston, Penn State.
You got to stay in your own conference.
Whoa! I was just.
Well, maybe if Rob liked you better. If he liked you better, you wouldn't go like second to last and last both times. I can't help it. You should be nicer to Rob. So
okay, so I got Charleston, Penn State, and then I think a sneaky one is going to also be Princeton, Sacred Heart. That's going to be a good matchup. And then we also have George Mason, Harvard as well. I think we're going to learn a lot about the EVA after this week. So I'm really excited to see all the East Coast games.
Jay's like all depressed now. Who's your sponsor going to be this week? Some kind of depression.
You pick Portillo's, I'm logging off. You pick Portillo's, I'm out.
Oh, one less person to deal with. Sponsored by Portillo's. No, I'm just kidding. Listen, I think we're all going to watch UCI Long Beach. I wish Long Beach had Soto in to see really where they would stack up against UC Irvine, but I'm sure that Niff is probably happy that he's not going to be in there. Obviously, we're going up to Cambridge. We're going to play the wicked smart guys of Harvard. That's going to be a fun one. This is the restart of the EIVA second half, and all matches count from here. So I, too, was going to watch Charleston, Penn State. That's going to be an interesting one. Charleston has never beaten Penn State before, and Charleston has a good crew this year. If their starting setter Stommel is back in, I'm going to pick an upset. I'm going to pick Charleston over Penn State. I think they have some tools that can take it this year. But since he stole some of my other ones, my one match, sponsored by Banditos Mexican Food here in Fairfax, Virginia. Some of the best Mexican you'll find. Banditos, Pepperdine, UCLA is going to be a fun one to watch, only because they weren't the other match that anybody picked. So I'm just picking it there.
All great matches. I know that we are running long here, but hot mic moment is always a favorite. Are you guys able to hang back on?
Yeah.
All right. Theo had one, but do you want to jump in?
Can I go with a fun one before we get heated with it?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Dan is actually the sponsor of this topic.
Well, I actually have a sponsor for this one too, as well. So we've talked a lot about the streaming services and the Big Ten Plus and what's going on with MPSF. And to all the holdouts that have held out like myself on not paying for the Big Ten Plus network, you got one more week. So you make it through this week, and then you sign up for Big Ten Plus. Go to Big Ten Plus / Coach Brad, and you can sign up. And instead of the $12.99, it'll actually be $9.99. I do get 50% of the commission on those. So that will be great. But you can sign up for it then. You get to check out all the end of the year MPSF.
And then is there a way to shut him off the podcast right now? Like, I don't even need to hear this right now. Like, can I just go mute to him or like kick him off? Like, or Rob, can you kick him off? Because it's just wasted 30 seconds of my life. I'm not giving Brad any money. So
I would make that a commercial on its own right there. Get the individual video file of Brad doing it.
But seriously, I think now is the time. If you haven't done it, you splurge, you go for it, and you get to enjoy the MPSF tournament. If you wait one more week, you then have that to sign up for. That promo code is fake and not viable, and you can't sue me for this. But I'll still take 50% of that $12.99 for the next month.
All right.
Let me go next because I know the hot topic is coming.
Okay.
I've got two. First of all, if you put ketchup on your hot dog after the age of 12, you should not be allowed to eat hot dogs ever again. Ketchup is for kids. It's not for adults on a hot dog. I'm just saying. Secondly, NCAA, 16 teams. Let me just run this through you. UC Irvine, Hawaii, Long Beach, UCLA, USC, Stanford, Pepperdine, Ball State, Loyola, Lewis, McKendree, CSUN. That is 13 teams right there. 12, 13 teams right there. That should be
San Diego. You forgot San Diego.
Wow, Jay. You're that mad? I took the EVA schools for the what to watch?
Yes, that's my payback.
He actually scratched your name out when he was reading it off. He was like this.
Yeah. Well, notice I didn't mention me
You got
or
the red
State
ink
or
and-
anybody else. But those are teams that deserve to be in the big dance. And listen, I understand everybody wants to say, oh, the Cinderellas. There's Cinderellas. Belmont Abbey was the Cinderella last year. I love you, Belmont Abbey. And Derek, you know I love you. You're a good coach. You got a great team. That's not a true Cinderella, though, because there really was no way for them to win that tournament last year. I'm just sorry. It just is what it is. Don't send me any hate mail. You won your conference. Good on you. But those other teams that I mentioned, there are lots of really true Cinderellas in there that could have a hot week. And you could structure it where the weekend prior to the championships, you have a first round, and then you could have national quarterfinals, and then you can have a true Final Four. And out of all those teams, if the Final Four is really all from the Big West, good for you guys. Maybe there's 2 from the MPSF and 2 from the Big West. Good for you guys. But everybody keeps complaining, well, we have all these teams taking these spots when these other teams should get in there. NCAA, 16 teams. Get after it.
Well, to back your point up, Jay, you look at the sales, look at the numbers, the ticket sale numbers from Long Beach State's matches alone. If you don't think this has the ability to make money, you're crazy.
Yes.
It can make money.
Yes, that first round sites that you put up, you can actually make money off that because people will go. It's regional. Come on. It's not that hard to do. It's really not that hard to do.
Except for the fact that it doesn't work like that with any sport.
Nope.
Shut up, Dan.
But Dan, the way that March Madness works doesn't work like that for any other sport either. You tailor it based on
you can't even
what
put
you know.
men's volleyball in the same breath as March Madness.
It's not about it being in the same breath. It's about understanding that there's a reason you have 18 scholarships in one sport and 80 in another. They're two very different things, and we can't talk about equity across all these different sports if we're not looking at it as, hey, this is what this sport has and this is what they have to offer. If we can make money on it, it's a no-brainer.
Right,
Let's just make
pretty
sure
soon, I'm gonna put a nail in your coffin. In 4 years, you won't have 3/4 of your contingent.
Well, in 3 or 4 years, when D2 breaks off, we might not have Division I conferences. We might have 3 different conferences as a whole, and then you could relegate from top to bottom in Division I. That's an easy solution right there.
Right.
And I also think regardless, even if we did regional, it would still end up being pretty similar, right? Where we'd have 1 Midwest school, 1 East Coast school, and 2 West Coast schools.
No, because you could have 1 versus 16, 2 versus 15, and you could find a location for those. It wouldn't be necessarily a regional 8 and an 8. That's not how it would work.
All right. That brings us to Dan's hot mic topic.
Well, you guys are thinking mine's more hot mic. Theo might go a different direction with it. But for those of you that don't know, you can't challenge the center line violation for a challenge rule. FIVB you can, but the rule is different too. So in FIVB, you can't have any center line violation. It's like in the NCAA men's, you can cross the line if you don't make impact or impact the play at all. So like if your setter's setting and they going for a tight ball and they turn their foot under and it goes all the way under, but there's, no contact or it doesn't affect anything, they're not going to call it in men's NCAA volleyball. If you do that in the FIVB, they call you on it because it's a center line violation, no matter whether you make contact or not. But right now, what I'm talking about is you can't challenge a center line if there's contact. So say a down official can't see the other side. It's just tough. It's all the way on the other side. The up official's got his eyes up. And there is contact, allowing the official to challenge that. It doesn't become a judgment thing. It's just like, hey, we want to challenge that so they can use this CRS system, the challenge system, to see if they see him actually under the net. And if they see him under the net, then they're under the net, they made contact, it created an issue. Yeah, I can call it. If they were under the net, didn't contact, then yeah, I get it, but you wouldn't have to call that from that standpoint. So, but we had a scenario that came up where it was tough, and I think you should be able to challenge that from that standpoint.
I think, and I know Theo's going to come in on this, but if that is indeed the case where you make the rule that you cannot go it under like the FIVB rule, I think that's a good rule. But what you'll have to do is stretch the center line all the way to the poles, because you'll have guys that'll step off to the side and then they still are causing an issue. So you'd have to make that line go all the way to the poles.
FIVB doesn't.
No, you don't need to, though, because you can be under the center line out of bounds. That's okay.
I understand that. But if you want to make it illegal for not to be under the center line at all, period, I think it'd be better to make that line go all the way across, and then you don't get any chance to go under, no matter where you are on the court. It's just an easier call to make. That's just my take.
Yeah, I agree with Dan. I think that not only should it be challengeable, but I think that we should mirror FIVB, that you should not be able to come underneath the net at all. It shouldn't, whether there's an interference or not. The problem is that for these refs, and there's only 2 of them, trying to determine whether it makes an impact is really tough, especially when the down ref is typically the one that's responsible for watching the net. It's tough to see. And to Dan's point, like, we had a situation where our guys hit a ball, the guy goes under, and he clearly goes under.
He dove all the way across.
He crosses, right? So he crosses. He clearly interferes with the blocker. The blocker ends up falling into the net. And the net gets called, not the under. But it's just too much for that ref to watch. You got to be able to run that back on video. I think that that's absolutely the case. But I think if you make it so that you can't cross that center line completely, it makes it a hell of a lot easier to determine the ins and outs of it.
I think I was trying to process that, whether that was the right call for us at the college game versus the FIV. You know, where the FIV, they're better athletes. They have more body control. They're more self-aware. I don't know. I go back and forth on that part. But the part about just being able to look at a viable replay on that situation is an easy change, I think. So it'd be interesting to get, like, we did a poll last year. So we changed the setting rule. We went to the rules committee. We did a poll. People were all in favor with it. Then we did a poll, if you guys remember, about substitutions, where if you had unlimited entries but stayed with 6 subs, hey, you could do a little bit more. You could use your serving sub more than once. But the poll came back and it was only like 50-50. And if it comes back and it's 50-50, I think that's a hard change to make when the larger part of the constituents. So it's one of those things we could try to do a poll and be like, hey, do you want to mirror this rule, and kind of see what the coaches say from that standpoint. I don't know. I don't know what the overall feeling would be about mirroring the center line, and not being able to go under at all. So.
I think the other piece that's interesting with it, and I forget if it was against Purdue Fort Wayne or Lindenwood, but up at Northridge, I actually tried challenging a center line violation by not challenging a center line violation, by talking to the R2, the down ref, and saying, hey, he was under before the ball hit the ground, and the ref said he was under, but the ball had hit the ground. So I said, if we agree he was under, can I challenge if the ball had hit the ground or not prior to him? Because I'm challenging if the ball's down or not.
Right.
I was stymied on that. They did not allow that to happen. I think they actually looked at it and couldn't really tell. And then later on, they told me I'm not allowed to challenge that. But I do think there's a way to review that. There's a way to look at it, because it is so tough and such a bang call, that it's impossible to watch everything, right? You're either watching the net, you're watching the ground, or you're watching to see where the ball's going. And it's just too much on 2 refs to be able to have to manage that, and look through it. And I mean, how much does it affect? I think maybe there'd be 2 plays we'd challenge over the course of our 18, 20 matches we've played. So it'd be a very small number of plays, but I think it's something for sure that as coaches, it doesn't hurt to have more things we could challenge and look at and investigate. And I don't think it would be happening so frequently where it'd be slowing the game down a ton.
Yeah. I think the whole point of the challenge, and this did not work in Theo's favor, which I still don't understand, but the whole job is to get it the best we can for the kids. That's why you have the replay system. And so, well.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a great segue. because I'll kind of elaborate on what Dan's talking about. So essentially,
Is your
set
official
5.
hot mic for you, Theo?
This is the official hot
All
mic.
right, just so our listeners know that we're transitioning to Theo's hot take.
This is my hot mic moment. So we're at Loyola. It's a great match and a lot of back and forth. I want to give some credit to the up ref because I think that he made one questionable call early in the match. He evened the score. So essentially, he called a throw on Jalen Phillips. We were all really shocked, including the crowd. He then called the same throw on Loyola and never called the throw the rest of the night, which was perfect. Like that's the way to do it. If you make a mistake, make sure that you make it fair and then get away from it. I thought that guy was fantastic. We get to the 5th set. We were down at the turn. We were on a run. One of our servers got really hot, and the score was 12-11. We were down. We get them out of system. Their setter takes a swing. The ball clearly, and now that we have obviously the ability to look at it from every which way, which you don't have when you're on the bench at that moment in time, the ball is clearly out of bounds. It is called correctly on the floor. Both line judges call the ball out. Both R1 and R2 agree. We are awarded the point. Okay. And this is the first time in my career, and really since video challenge has been a thing in the NCAA, the first time that I have ever seen this happen. Shane Davis challenges, right? Which any good coach would. Smart move, good idea. It might have been close. Let's take a look at it. The score's 12-12. We're not leaving with these challenges. The R2 takes a look at the video. He doesn't look for very long, which is the other thing that was a little bit strange. And he awards Loyola the point. Our side of the net was very shocked. And because at least live, it looked very obvious that the ball was out. I now can say with the video evidence, it was clearly out and obviously out. And so the question then becomes how, knowing that the rules are that you have to find evidence to overturn the original call, how could that have been changed? Knowing that it didn't get touched. Like we now have the evidence knowing that that is absolutely the case. It was not touched. What did he see and why was that call overturned? And then what do you do about it, right? Is it the volleyball purists of the world that hated the idea of this challenge system being in play? They're wrong. The challenge system is great and it makes the game better. This is the first time I've ever experienced it making the game worse, where you have a situation where obviously when the balls are hit out, the team that hit the ball out loses the point. I think it has big implications on that match, going 12-12 versus 11-13. And then, the essentially the sets go into extras and we lose it 18-16. It has a big implication on that match, but I think the bigger thing is trying to determine how do you keep this from happening in the future. So a little disappointing on our end. I don't think it's the reason we lost, right? I don't want that to come across because there's 5 sets of volleyball, right? We could have won that thing in 3 or 4 if we were the better team at that night. But really hot take moment for us because you leave that match and you're talking to your team and trying to, get them to keep their heads up. You're talking about a moment in time when they did it right and lost the point. That's not what this is supposed to. That's not how it's supposed to go. Bad calls are made, but when it's called correctly and then overturned by video, that's a tough one to swallow.
Hey, let me ask you guys this. I know that it could vary from venue to venue. Like I know when we're on the Irvine broadcast, DV Sport has access to different cameras from the broadcast feed, but sometimes the broadcast feed actually captures whatever it is that's being challenged, but
Yep.
there have been times it looked obvious on the broadcast feed, but we get it wrong because they've seen something else on the DVS Sport feed. So do you guys use all the cameras or just the DV Sport cameras or whatever your replay system is?
It varies venue to venue. So some venues have all of their cameras in place. I think like Dan has a system where all his cameras are in place. And then some, like at Hawaii, they have all of the cameras in place, but they also have the cameras from Spectrum Sports that they can tap into the feed of what they saw as well.
Yeah. Well, there we go. Hot take moment.
And Theo, on that, did you because I'm assuming they said the touch was on your middle, and I'm assuming your middle's like, I didn't touch the ball. Was there any talks of you re-challenging it, or because it was that call, they didn't allow you to re-challenge?
Yeah, Brad, I honestly didn't even think about it. I actually said some choice words for sure to the R2, and not inappropriate, but just the question I asked was, "You're 100% sure?" And he said it touched his middle finger, right? Which, looking at the video, the ball goes through his hands. So I don't know if you looked at the baseline view, you'd know it didn't go on his middle finger. You'd know it went through his hands. And then, so the question is,
I wonder if they got the right play queued up.
right? That it makes you wonder. It makes you wonder for sure. But again, then that becomes the next piece, right? With a lot of the other sports, and specifically on the pro circuit, they don't use the acting referees to look at the challenges. And then for the Big West tournament, they bring in an R3, right? And the R3 is responsible, who's now a non-biased party at that point, to look through and figure out what happened, so that now it's not a me versus the R2 and us arguing, and now ask him to go look back and then confirm that I was correct. I think emotionally that's a pretty tough thing to try and get to happen.
I've been looking online here, and I found a couple of clips, and there's one of them that has a professional lip reader. And if I read this correctly, the lip reader saw Theo ask the down ref, the R2, "Do you have any ketchup?" And the R2 said, "That right there is the reason why you're not getting the call." I think that's exactly what the type just said. So I don't know.
You know what though? By conference, though, like in collegiate basketball, if the referee or official who's reviewing the challenge play is questionable on it, they'll bring the other guys in.
Yeah.
So I mean, but there's only 2 referees in collegiate.
I don't think that's ever happened well, and it'd just be weird to come down from the stand to look at a video.
Yeah.
Well, in F5VB, the R1 has the screen up with him, right? So he has an opportunity to watch. And yeah, it's a tough situation no matter what. I think the good news is that's the first time I've ever seen it happen. I've never seen a video make it worse in that sense. Normally the referees don't have a great look at it, and then they let it go with what the call was, and bad calls are part of the game. That's for darn sure.
Well, I'm going to find that. I'm going to find that footage and put that to promote our weekly podcast. Then
I got a great piece of footage for you. Then we have it in HD. We had a camera person that was on the end line who was filming it in HD and has a zoomed in look at it. I mean, it's clear as day.
Yeah. Well, with that, we have gone really long, but always some great topics. That's Brad Rothstein of UC San Diego, Jay Hoslick of George Mason, Theo Edwards of CSUN, and Dan Friend of Lewis. As always, gentlemen, appreciate your commitment and time to this and promoting the game. It's only going to get hotter. We are getting close to conference tournament time, and these guys are even saltier, I think, is what I'm going to guess. So maybe we'll bring it to a new level of saltiness. Guys, best of luck to you this week.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to College Volleyball Weekly. Be sure to follow Rob Aspero at the Rob on the Mic on Instagram and at Rob on the Mic on Twitter.